All right, welcome back. So with our roasted chicken, we want to be able to serve a sauce to go on the side of it. You want to help, sauces are there to help promote, moisture and to help flavor and just to bring more to the dish than just the chicken itself. A really, really simple one that we can do is what's called an au jus. So it's just whatever is left over in the pan that we're going to add a few things to make a sauce out of. When that chicken is roasting in the pan, it's dripping. And there's a lot of the fat that's coming out and flavor is coming out of it. That's going to be out to the bottom of the pan, and that represents a lot of flavor. We don't want to just toss that out. So to enhance that, we're actually going to add some mirepoix to it, maybe some herbs. We'll add some chicken stock to it, and then season it, maybe a little lemon juice as well to help accent and bring the flavors together. But I'm going to show you how to do that. But we want to start. I want to cut up some mirepoix just for our jus. So what I've got here are a carrot, celery, and onion. The onion I probably only need about half for the recipe, but let's go ahead and cut up our carrot. And this carrot, I leave my carrots, I leave the skin on my carrots. I don't peel them. All I do is I scrub them really well with like a little brush and then dry them off. There's a lot of nutrients that are left in the skin that we get rid of with carrots, and a lot of other vegetables that you can eat that you lose that nutritional value when you peel it and throw the peels into the compost or into the trash. So I just scrub it really well, get all the dirt off, and then leave the peel on. You can just take off the ends if they need it. That one doesn't need it, but the top at least into my bucket. And when cutting a carrot, you want to cut it into smaller pieces. You want them all to be roughly the same size, but if I were to just cut these into coins, this would be a lot different in size than this would be. So I want to go ahead and cut this down and let's cut it down a little bit smaller. Do the same thing with this one. And then just turn those and run my knife across. That way I've got roughly the same size pieces. They're going to cook even. So, and this one, since this was smaller, I'm just going to cut this in half. I'm not going to cut it in quarters like I just did with that piece. Lay them flat, turn them, and just do the same thing. So now I've got roughly pieces that are fairly close to the same size there. Let's get this into the bowl, and I'll show you how to do the same thing with the celery. So the celery, let's go ahead and cut this into maybe thirds. And once again, you can see all different widths. So this one, this is the tip. I can probably just leave that as is and just cut that down into, roughly, half-inch pieces, maybe like a medium, would be a medium dice. And so this one, let's go ahead and cut this in half. I think that'll be good. Same thing. Get that into the bowl. And then this, let's cut this into thirds. This is a little bit bigger, the base is. Bring them together. And the same thing right down. Okay? So now I've got one stalk of celery, I've got one carrot, and then I'm going to add about a half an onion. And this is all just for flavor for my sauce. It's also going to show you when we get to the point of making the sauce, I'm going to show you how to thicken it with these vegetables. So the onion, let's go ahead and peel it, cut off the very top. Remember, that's the north pole end. The root is the south pole. Just take off the very little bit of that. Get that into your compost bucket. Like I said, remember, always keep that bucket close by. That way you save yourself a trip from going to the sink or going to the trash can. You can just put your peels and your scraps into that. Now let's make sure we get our board wiped off, because you don't want all that dirt from the outside of that onion on our board. Okay. All right, so now, like I showed you in the video on knife skills and knife cutting, we're going to take and cut right down through the center of that root. Okay, I'll save that one for another application. Now I'm going to turn that root away from me, so that root is facing toward the camera, and I'm going to run my knife not all the way through, and then about a ½ inch, so they're about the same size as my carrots and my celery, about a ½ inch in width. What I'm doing is run my knife straight down, not going through the back of the onion. Then I'm going to turn it 90 degrees. So now the peel is to my left, or the root is to my left. I'm going to come back to the back of the cutting board, and I'm going to hold those peels on top. Make sure your fingers are on top of the onion. And run my knife almost all the way through, but not going quite through. If pieces want to fall off, that's fine. No big deal. It's an onion. It's food. All right, so now I'm going to take right on the top, straight down. You can see we have nice, roughly ½ inch size pieces of onion, which I can now add to my mirepoix. Okay, so that real quick, how to cut mirepoix really quick, adds a lot of flavor. I'm going to show you how when our chicken is our roasted chicken is resting. So now I'm going to take it. I'm going to show you how to add that to our pan when our chicken is roasting. So when we pull the chicken out of the oven, we'll take the entire chicken with the tray, and we're going to cover it so it can rest, and then we're going to make our sauce while our chicken is resting. All right, so we're going to pull the chicken out of the oven. We're going to make our sauce. I'll show you how to do that in just a couple minutes, and we'll get right to that next one in the next section. All right, so here we are, we're back. I've got the chicken resting. It's sitting on the sheet tray. It's covered. It's gonna rest, let those juices retract back into it before we cut it. But I went ahead and set our pan over my burners. And what I've got just over like a low to medium heat. And I took out a little bit of the fat. I left maybe 1 or 2 tablespoons of fat in here. And I want that because I wanna use that to cook our mirepoix. And I've also added to our mirepoix, I've added a little bit of thyme and a little bit of rosemary, and I'm going to cook those in here as well because I want to add some more flavor. You could also do other things. You could do, sage. You could do, garlic. Whatever you want to do, just make sure it doesn't burn. Like, garlic would burn after a while, so you want to add that a little bit later. So let's go ahead. You can hear the pan is starting to sizzle. The fond on the bottom starting to cook. Let's get our mirepoix in here, and I want to add some color to it a little bit. And the reason being is when you saute, when you cook things in a pan, color is what gives you the flavor. It helps develop your flavor. So I've got a whisk, but let's use a spoon as well. Just toss that around. And you can scrape up the bottom as well. You can see all that and what it's called fond. It's what's left over from the meat that has developed on the bottom of the pan. You can scrape it up a little bit. It'll come up when we deglaze with our stock. But the smell is really what you get. I'm gonna go ahead and add a little bit of salt and pepper right now. I don't wanna season it entirely because I don't wanna have, when I reduce this, I don't want that salt to concentrate too much. So I'm gonna add a little bit of salt though, and the reason I'm adding salt now is I wanna start to bring moisture out of my mirepoix so that the moisture evaporates so that it'll start to color faster. Remember, you gotta get rid of the moisture before you can get the Maillard reaction or the color, the carbohydrates to start to caramelize. So a little bit of salt, and salt just helps with that process. Salt will start to draw the moisture out of your vegetables and allow them that moisture to evaporate. So give that a stir. So we're going to let this cook for about 5 to 6 minutes. Really get some flavor development going. Really start to develop that. We'll come back and I'll show you how to deglaze with our stock. All right, see you in a minute. All right, so we're back, and it's been about 5 to 6 minutes. Our mirepoix has really cooked down quite a bit. You can see it is nice and tender. It looks nice and brown on the outside. Getting a lot of the flavor has developed. So what we're gonna do now is we're actually gonna add some stock to it. I'm gonna add about 2 to 2.5 cups of stock that I've got that's just hot here on the stove. and this is going to deglaze our sauce. So anything that's left on the bottom of the pan is going to become loose and come up and help develop flavor into our sauce. So what we're going to do now is just let that simmer. And what I want it to do is reduce. A reduction is a way to add and develop a lot of flavor. So now you're going to take and you're going to concentrate. If it's something that's just kind of it's got some flavor to it, but it's not really rich or hearty. Reducing like a stock or a wine is going to concentrate those flavors and really, really bring them out. It's going to make them really strong and powerful. So we're going to let this cook down for a few minutes until it's reduced by about half. I want about a cup to a cup and a quarter worth of sauce. So let's let this cook for just a few minutes. It'll really soften those vegetables quite a bit, and that way we can strain them, and I'll show you how to do that and really make a really beautiful sauce to go with your chicken. So let's let this reduce, and I'll take it over to the counter where we can strain it, and I'll show you how to finish this sauce. All right, so we came back over. I brought the pan over to the work area. It reduced for about 8 or 9 minutes. It's down to roughly a little bit around a cup of liquid. We are going to strain this. You want to be careful. This is extremely hot, so I'm going to strain it, and I've got a bucket set up with my strainer here. And you can use any strainer. You can use any high temperature container. Just make sure that you can get a little bit of leverage so you can push and really get the liquid out of the mirepoix, because we're going to press those through. So let's go ahead and strain that. When it was reducing too, I did scrape up everything that was on the bottom. And I'm going to dump the entire contents into the strainer. I'll put that back on the stove, get that out of the way. And then I'm going to take just a ladle, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to push down on those. You can see they're cooked through, the carrots, the celery, and the onion, and also those herbs that I threw in there. And what this is going to do by pressing some of the liquid out of the solids is going to help thicken your sauce as well. Now, I could also, another way to thicken it would be to put the liquid in a blender and blend some of the mirepoix, not the herbs, but blend some of the mirepoix in the blender, and that is another way to naturally thicken. If you don't want to use flour or cornstarch or arrowroot, you can always just use the vegetables that are in there. So don't think you can't do that. Okay, so I got most of the liquid out of those. Let's get my bowl. You can pull this out. Let's give us a little taste. So it's about a cup of sauce, which would be perfect for 4 or 5 people. Oh yeah. So if you wanted, it's kind of a richer sauce. You could always take and add, a squeeze of lemon juice into it. Acid is going to help balance out rich things like sauces. It'll help balance that out and bring it back to a more neutral feel. Also, if you need to, you can always re-season this. My salt is perfect on this. I added some salt to the mirepoix. There was salt that was in the chicken that came out of the chicken down into the pan. You got to think about all these things as you're cooking and what you're adding and what times you're adding in the seasonings. So my sauce is seasoned well. I don't have to add any more pepper, any more salt. I'm good there. It's good to go. If I wanted to thicken it, like I said, I could take and puree some of those veg in my blender with it, and that will thicken it as well. We are going to get more detailed, more in-depth in sauces as we get later in the program. We've got a whole lesson plan developed just for sauces. Actually, it's a 2-part lesson. So it's extremely long, and we'll get more into detail, like I said, about those later on. So don't worry yourself about making a roux or a slurry with cornstarch or arrowroot right now. Just worry about using the natural stuff that's in the pan and making a really, really simple sauce. Also that chicken stock is chicken stock that I've made. Remember, hopefully by now you've watched the bonus sections, the bonus lessons, and you've made a batch of chicken stock. Also you're going to have another carcass that's been roasted, which you can always use for making more chicken stock down the road. So I hope you enjoyed this lesson. This is about making just a really, really simple sauce. So au jus, this can now go with my chicken that you can have for dinner. You know, great way to add more flavor to your food. All right, take care, guys.